Minister of Home Affairs. I want to imagine that I'm not sure if the commissioners from the IEC are present, the officials from the Department of Home Affairs, the IEC, and the various legal teams. Welcome to the meeting. In terms of honorable members who are present, we have Honorable Member Fisser, Honorable Tetwa, Honorable Mikalakis, Honorable Seleku, Honorable Dlamini, Honorable Dango, Honorable Ndongeni, Honorable Mutsamaya, Honorable Bartlett. I'm not sure if I've missed out any other honorable members, but from your side, Gershwin and Zolani, were there any apologies rendered? Okay, Honorable Dodovo is on the platform as well. Any apologies from members?
No, Chairperson, no apologies.
Thank you. All right, and I see the chair of the commission is also here. Welcome to all. Okay, just in terms of our meeting today, and maybe to recap from what transpired in our previous meeting that we held on the 16th of November, we as a committee agreed on certain proposed amendments on 4 aspects of the bill related to signatures, vacancies in seats, independent candidates contesting more than one region, and the need for broader electoral reform. And following deliberations on this, on the bill, we asked the legal teams consisting of the IEC, the department, the state law advisor and parliament legal services to then look into drafting the proposed amendments and to present these in today's meeting. Our members, I think, would have noted that we did receive the proposed amendments and received the amendment related to the need for broader electoral reform this morning. I was also made aware that the senior counsel for the department would need to leave us as well. So I'm going to propose that we actually get the presentation from senior counsel with regard to matters related to broader electoral reform in the bill. And thereafter, we can then have the state law advisor then to take us through the proposed amendments. After that, obviously, the IEC, the department, and parliamentary legal services will also come and make an input if they have any to make. That being said, I'm going to hand over then to legal counsel or let me hand over to the minister then to then take us through this proposal. But let me just hand over to legal counsel so that we go through the document systematically. Oh, okay, sorry. Honorable Mikalakis, is that you?
That is me. Good morning, Chair.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Chair, I just want to ask, in terms of procedure, I do understand the department sent some of the proposals through to us late last night and this morning. I just want your confirmation that today is just going to be a briefing on that, because we will need some time to also consider what is before us, since we only received it now. I just need clarity from you that today will only be a briefing on these matters. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Mikalakis, it's largely a briefing, and if members wish to engage on the content, I mean, they're most welcome to do that. Okay. Senior counsel from the Department of Home Affairs, if I can hand over to you to deal with the clause that was sent to us.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, good morning, and good morning to the honourable members. Firstly, at the outset, Chair, please accept my apologies for having to leave at 10:30. I unfortunately got the wrong information about this meeting and thought it was commencing at 9, and I had a long-standing prior engagement that I simply couldn't move. So first, my apologies to the committee. I think what the best would be is, if possible, if someone could project the amendment dealing with electoral reform, and I can then talk through the relevant aspects of it. Would that be possible? Unless the members have it all to hand, and then I can just speak through it. That's no problem.
I think, okay, Gershwin, thanks. Gershwin.
Thank you so much. So this clause seeks to achieve what the Honourable Minister explained in the first briefing that he gave. And if I can just orientate the committee, you'll recall that there are two separate questions that need to be considered in my submission. The first is the question of independent candidates, which arises from the New Nation judgment. And that is the need to include independent candidates in the elections and allow for them to run in the elections. That is achieved by the existing bill that is before you, subject to the additional IEC amendment, which in my view is an excellent proposal and one that should be supported. But then there's the second question. And the second question is, does our electoral system not need a broader electoral reform? Now, as I explained at length last time, that is not required by the New Nation judgment of the Constitutional Court. It was expressed that it wasn't dealing with those sorts of questions. And so for the purposes of 2024, as you heard from me and the Minister, the focus is on making sure that independents can run, and thereafter, after 2024, there can be a consideration of broader electoral reform. But it is important in my submission, both for the public and for the court and for political parties, to make clear now that that is the intention of Parliament. Not what Parliament's decision is going to be, because that will be a decision in due course, but to make clear that Parliament is seriously considering the question of long-term electoral reform. And this provision makes that clear. And so it enables Parliament to say to civil society, to the public, and to the political parties, we know that many of you are clamoring for broader electoral reform. We think that is an important and legitimate debate that should happen, but they cannot be done now prior to the 2024 elections because there isn't time to do it. But we are committed to it. So now if I can look at the provision and what it seeks to achieve, and the provision will deal with this. If you look at clause 1 of the provision, it makes clear that within 4 months of the commencement of this provision, the Minister must establish the electoral reform consultation panel. So assuming that the bill comes into force, let's say in December or in January, it would be 4 months from then on. And the only reason for the 4-month period is because we've put in place a public nomination process for the members of the panel. Then if you could scroll down a bit, I'm not sure who's controlling the screen, but if you could, thank you, that'll do. So the objects of the panel are: 1, to independently investigate, consult on, report on, and make recommendations in respect of potential reforms of the electoral system. So the panel will be going and considering what potential reforms should be made, and then B, to do so.
The meeting is called after lunch.
Sorry, I can hear someone else talking. I think perhaps they're not muted.
Okay, but sorry for that.
So then the second object, which is related, is that they must do so in a manner that enables Parliament to exercise its constitutional powers to determine the electoral system. Because, of course, the power to determine the electoral system rests with Parliament. And Parliament can't outsource that to a panel. Parliament can get input from the panel, which is eminently appropriate, but Parliament can't outsource that to the panel. And Parliament, the purpose of this panel is not to decide on what election reform should take place. It's to advise Parliament so that Parliament can exercise its powers. And Parliament, and that of course would be the next Parliament, Parliament would have to decide whether there is a need for reforms, and if so, which ones to implement. So section 2 or subsection 2 sets out the objects of the panel. Then if we could go to subsection 3. Subsection 3 says that the panel must consider whether reforms are necessary, because of course some people say that reforms are not necessary, and the panel must consider, is there a need for reforms or not? B, the possible options for the reforms, and C, the advantages and disadvantages for each option. Because I think we need to be frank, every electoral system has its advantages and disadvantages. And the idea is that the panel will report back to Parliament and say, these are the options for reform, and these are the advantages and disadvantages of each. Then the clause 4 explains how the panel will go about its work. The panel will commence work immediately, effectively, once they're appointed. So that would be in roughly March or April next year, likely. They would, prior to the 2024 elections, so in the year or so that they've got, they will engage in research and the consideration of the issues falling within its mandate. So they'll be looking at foreign electoral systems. They'll be looking at the political science underneath it. They'll be looking at all of those sorts of issues. And then after the 2024 elections, when we have seen how this system has played out with independents, the panel will then engage in a process of public consultation. So that's consultation with the public and consultation with interested parties. Now that's the political parties, the NGOs, the IEC, etc., regarding the issues within its mandate, and that the panel must submit its report to the minister within 12 months. So there is a fixed deadline for the report to be produced to the minister. The next clause makes clear that when the minister receives the report, the minister has to forthwith table the report in Parliament for its consideration and must make the report available to the public. And that's important because it demonstrates to the public that this is a serious public-driven process and the public will immediately have access to it. Clause 6 just deals with the powers of the panel. It's got the powers to call for and receive written submissions. It can make written submissions available to all those who are interested. And then if we go to clause 7 says how the minister will constitute the panel. And basically what happens is that the minister calls from nominations. So any member of the public or any interested party can nominate South African citizens to sit on the panel. And they have to be people who are duly qualified and independent. And they have to have expertise in the administration and running of elections or constitutional law or electoral systems. So they have to have a specific expertise. The minister then, in consultation with the Electoral Commission, appoints the 9 members of the panel, and he appoints one of the panel members as the chairperson of the panel. Section 8 just deals with the usual provisions around if someone wants to resign or if the minister needs to remove, and the fact that the minister would need to fill the vacancy. Again, filling the vacancy by means of the qualifications in subsection 7. And again, it's in consultation with the Electoral Commission and after a public nominations process. Section 9 just deals with the remuneration of the panel. Section 10 deals with the fact that the Department of Home Affairs must provide people to assist the panel. So that's a secretariat essentially and the resources that are necessary. And then 11 says once the report of the panel has been tabled in Parliament, the members of the panel shall be discharged. So that's what the provision says. And really what this provision does is it's 2 things. Firstly, it sends a signal, which is an important one, that Parliament is serious about considering broader electoral reform, but that there needs to be a detailed and independent investigation into that, and that will take place by means of this panel. Secondly, it ensures that the next Parliament, within a year of its being elected, will have before it a comprehensive report from an independent, well-qualified panel, so that that Parliament can decide whether to engage in further electoral reforms or not, and to do so in a way that allows time for that to be implemented prior to the 2029 elections. Chair, I think I've summarized, and so let me say, in my view, this is a very welcome and very important development, which makes clear the appropriateness of the bill and will assist the bill in passing constitutional scrutiny. And I would respectfully submit that the NCOP should give serious consideration to adopting this amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much to Senior Counsel from Affairs for that or presenting that relevant clause to the committee. I think it clarifies the objectives, the roles, and the expectations from establishing a panel that will look into electoral reform the period following this piece of legislation. Let me open it up then to honourable members before the advocate might leave us. But obviously, it's also with the understanding that our legal teams might not have had the parliamentary legal services. I'm not sure if the state law advisor, but let me not speak for them, may not have had the necessary time as well to internalize some of these things. But be that as it may, I'll just open it up for if any member have any comments around this matter. I notice Honorable Mikalakis, your hand is up.
Thank you very much, Chair, and for the presentation. Chairperson, may I start, and it's perhaps not a question or a comment for the council of the department, but it's more a political comment, that I don't quite buy the argument that Parliament or the department or government shows that they're serious about public participation by including those specific clauses. I mean, if that was a serious point of concern, then our argument would have been taken of last week that the public participation process this time around is flawed. But let me leave that comment there. My questions are that, having looked through those proposals this morning very quickly when we received it, I do not find anything that stipulates the composition of such a panel. Should that not be included in the proposal, so that we know beforehand how many people, what kind of people, what expertise and so on we wish to have on this panel? That would be my first question. My second question is, was this not the purpose in the first point of the Van Zyl-Slabbert report and panel back in the day? Has this process not already been concluded many years back, and just have to be considered and given serious thought to? Those would be my.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kalakis. Honorable Dodo.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Dodo.
Yes, Honorable Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity. I want to welcome the intervention. I think this is quite innovative, but I think at the same time we must applaud the work that this committee is doing in respect of the interventions that it is making. When this bill came to the Select Committee, doomsayers were saying the NCOP is just going to rubber stamp the work of the National Assembly. That's not the case, Honorable Chair. We have made serious interventions to an extent that this bill will have to go back inevitably to the National Assembly. And I really want to reinforce this particular point, because this is quite important. The submission that is made by the advocate is very much important. I think we must support it, especially when it clearly spells out what is it that needs to happen, the 9 members of the panel who must be appointed with all their expertise and qualifications. For me, this is quite important, and we must really applaud this and support this, Honorable Chair. Secondly, I think what is also important, and it is encapsulated in this proposal, is the fact that going forward in the future, this panel that is going to be appointed by the minister, it is going to do a thorough job. It is going to research. It is going to do comparative studies. It is also going to do some desktop analysis of the situation currently obtained. But importantly, not only engaging political parties and affected parties, but ensure that there is a laborious process of community and public consultation. For me, these are the underpinnings that are there in this particular bill, and we need to support that. And moving the process forward, Honorable Chair, I propose that once we are done with this, we must get into the next stage. But really, I really want to emphasize the fact that we have dealt with this particular bill quite extensively, to an extent that we have made these interventions that we propose that need to be taken forward. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dovo. Honorable Dango.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think Honorable Dodova has covered me to a large extent. This is an important intervention. It is an important intervention to show the country and the population at large that Parliament is serious about electoral reform. What the nature and the content of that electoral reform may or may not be will be determined by the recommendations made by the panel or the committee appointed by the minister, and that recommendations will come back to Parliament. Parliament then consider its own positions on the matter and the matter of bringing together the unity and the harmony within the South African system. Thank you very much. As was envisaged in 1994 by President Mandela, President de Klerk, and those who in fact designed that system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dodovo, Honorable Dango, for those comments. Honorable Mikolakis had raised a question as well. Perhaps if I can hand over then to yourself, Senior Counsel, to deal with that, to maybe just provide more clarity and more context, if you can, on those matters.
Certainly, Chair. Thank you very much for all of those comments. I've noted two questions from Honourable Mikolakis. The first one was about, shouldn't the bill make provision for how the panel is to be comprised? But I think that perhaps if Honourable Mikolakis could have regard to subsection 7, it will be clear that that has been dealt with. Subsection 7 says that in order to establish and constitute the panel, the minister must call for nominations from the public and interested parties. So it's a public nomination process. And then it says that the requirements, the persons to be appointed must be duly qualified and independent with expertise in the administration and running of elections or constitutional law or electoral systems. So those are the three criteria, either the expertise in administering and running elections or constitutional law or electoral systems. Those are the requirements. And then it provides that the minister must make the appointment in consultation with the Electoral Commission, and that language in consultation requires the concurrence of the Electoral Commission. So it makes clear that the Electoral Commission has to agree, that there are 9 members who have to be appointed, and that one of the panel members has to be the chairperson. So I think that is dealt with in the bill at the moment. And then on the second question about the Van Zyl-Slabbert report, well, it's not for me to speak about whether the Van Zyl-Slabbert report should or should not have been adopted. But let me say this. What is clear is that there have been years passed since the Van Zyl-Slabbert report, and now there has been a substantial change, which is that for the first time, independents are being allowed in. And that seems a very opportune moment to have an independent body like this panel express a view on whether electoral reform is necessary or not. I have no doubt that they will have regard to the work done by the Van Zyl-Slabbert committee, but of course they will not be considering it in this context, and so it would be appropriate to have the committee do so. Thank you very much. I don't think there were, I took the notes of the points raised by Honourable Dango and Honourable Dodovu, but I don't think they require a response from me. Thank you, Chair.
And no, I think those were just broad comments of support. But be that as it may, honourable members, I think we can perhaps close on this item and then go into.
No, Chair, my hand is up, Chair.
Oh, so sorry, Minister. I'm a bit challenged today, and my apologies. Okay. Minister, over to you.
Yes, Chair, I want to deal with 2 issues also from Mr. Mikolakis. The first one, he says he's not convinced that Parliament is determined to make sure that there is electoral reforms. And he said this in passing, just as a snipe, and say he's passing it. Chairperson, we have repeated this issue many times. If he doesn't want to get convinced, there is nothing we can do. We told him that in answering this question from the Constitutional Court, we're only dealing with the issue of independence for the simple reason that there was absolutely no time to deal with broader electoral reform. And we made it clear that it's not that we don't want electoral reform. There's no chance of it happening within that period that was given. Now, the second issue, Senior Counsel Butland has answered it. But I also want to add, Chairperson, because the question here was the work not already done by Van Zyl Slabbert? And the answer is no, it was not done. Not this type of work that we are looking for. Van Zyl Slabbert was looking for constituency system within the current system of political parties. If you read that report from Van Zyl Slabbert, it's a 72-page document. In that 72-page, the word independent does not even appear once. It was not even considered. It does not even appear once. Nobody ever thought South Africa could have elections in the National Assembly and provincial legislatures where independents are taking place, are taking part. Then there was a high-level panel report headed by former President Kgalema Motlanthe in 2017. They did the same thing Van Zyl Slabbert did. They never mentioned the word independent even once. All the two reports were saying was that people must be chosen through constituencies, but the people who are going to fight for those constituencies are political parties. This brings me to the conclusion that even if the Van Zyl Slabbert report or the Kgalema Motlanthe report were implemented, this case by the New Nation movement will still have happened in court, because we'll still have been having a parliament where people are coming through constituencies, but it's political parties that are slaking it out. Now, this one is completely different, even when you read this document from Senior Counsel, that the people to be consulted will be parliament, in which there are independents also, who will also give their views, and there'll be political parties. So it will be a combination of political parties and independents who are talking about what is the most appropriate electoral system. So that type of work has not been done, is going to be very new as far as I'm concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Just I think in terms of this discussion with regard to the Van Zyl Slabbert report, it was mentioned, I think, in the beginning of our engagement with the department on the bill. But anyway, this was not only the side comment made, but I would rather not go into the other one around public participation, because I think we dealt with the matter in a previous meeting, and yeah, it's not helpful. Perhaps let me close then on this item. We'll then go to the state law advisor, who can then take us through the amendments that are involved. Please,
may I be excused? And can I just say that my junior, Mr. De Beer, is online and will be attending in the meeting if there are other issues that need to be raised. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members.
Thank you, Senior Counsel. Thank you very much. That's appreciated. We'll remain with Advocate De Beer.
Thank you.
Okay, the state law advisor, if you can then take us through the rest of the bill.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Minister. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Honourable Members. My name is Ray Williams. I'm from the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor, accompanied by my colleagues, Sada Govender and Aisha Johar, who will be with me in the presentation. Sada Govender would be covering part of the presentation. Chairperson, as per the instructions from the last committee meeting, we, together with the parliamentary law advisors, with the IC and the department, we've considered the proposals made by the committee. We've drafted it in a form of proposed amendments to the Electoral Amendment Bill B1B of 2022. Okay. With regard to the first one, would be on page 3 in line 24, after the word following to omit paragraph and to insert paragraphs. The reason for that is that we inserting the proposed paragraph. Yes.
Would it not be better if you project the document?
Yes, please.
Personally, if I can ask the committee secretary has a copy of the document as well as a content advisory. If they can please screen it, flash it on the screen for us.
Gershwin, are you able to do that? Okay, great, thanks. Okay, I think you can continue.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And then on page 3 in line 28, to omit the closed inverted commas and the full stop. The reason for that is to provide for the insertion of the paragraph CB, okay? And paragraph CB would follow paragraph CA in the bill. That would be in clause 3 of the bill, okay? And the CB would read from the bill, from the, if you look at the Principal Act itself, Section 27 provides for submission of list of candidates, and then subsection 2 provides that the list or lists must be accompanied by a prescribed, and then paragraph CB would follow from that. So to read, the list or list must be accompanied by a prescribed form, comma, in the case of a registered party not represented in the National Assembly or any provincial legislature, confirming that the party has submitted in the prescribed manner the names, identity numbers, and signatures of voters whose names appear. Subparagraph 1, in the case of an election for the National Assembly in respect of regional seats on the national segment of the voters' roll and who support the party, totaling at least 20% of the highest of the regional quotas in the preceding election for which the party intends to nominate candidates. Or subparagraph 2, in the case of an election for a provincial legislature on the segment of the voters' roll for the province and who support the party, totaling at least 20% of the provincial quota in the preceding election for which the party intends to nominate candidates. That would be the sum total of the new paragraph CB. Okay. Chairperson, with regard to clause 6, we've met with the IC and they made some sort of proposals which has not been presented to the committee as yet. We have requested them to present it to the committee and they have prepared a presentation on this regard, because at the last committee, the committee discussed the proviso which comes after that paragraph, but they proposed some changes to paragraph A. If we can hand over to the IC to present that new proposal in respect of clause 6, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. The IEC, who will take us through this one?
Chairperson, good morning.
Maybe advise us. Yeah. Good morning, Commissioner.
Yes, good morning to you and your honorable members, the Minister of Home Affairs, the DG, and the council team, to my colleagues, the CEO and his team. I'm joined by Commissioner Love, the Vice Chair, and the CEO with his team. It is true that we are presenting to you this morning clause 6, which seeks to strengthen the bill in as far as it deals with what was considered to be unequal treatment between independent candidates and parties that had not proven their popularity through being elected and having representations in any of the legislatures or the National Assembly. I'd like, without any waste of time, to call upon the CO to present that clause. CO, please present this to the committee.
Thanks, Chair. With your leave, Chairperson of the committee and Chair of the Commission, Mr. Shiburu will briefly take us through the clause, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, CEO. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members.
Good morning.
The overriding consideration in presenting this proposal is to obtain parity and equity in the manner that the bill treats contestants, whether they are independent or party candidates. Secondly, from public participation processes, significant submissions were that there are onerous requirements placed on the nomination of independent candidates when there are no such requirements for candidates who appear on party list. So the phrasing is intended to obtain parity in the manner that the bill treats parties as well as independent candidates. And to that end, we propose the following: that at the point where an independent submits their candidate nomination document, they will complete a prescribed form confirming that the independent candidate has submitted in the prescribed manner the names, identity numbers, and signatures of voters whose names appear, one, in the case of an election for the National Assembly in respect of regional seats on the national segment of the voters' roll, and who support his or her candidature totaling at least 20% of the highest of the regional quotas in the preceding election. The only difference that we have done here, Chair, is that if an independent candidate wants to contest in more than one region for a seat in the National Assembly, we no longer advise that we should require that they meet a quota in each of the regions. Rather, that if they contest multiple regions, we will accept the highest aggregate regional quota as a condition for participation. What do we mean by that? If an independent submits their candidature to contest a region in Northern Cape, to contest a regional seat in Mpumalanga, and to also contest a regional seat in Gauteng, instead of requiring that they must meet 20% of the quota in all those three regions, we are proposing that they meet the highest quota, which is a seat in Gauteng at 18,000 votes. And if they meet that, they can contest in all other three regions. Why taking an aggregate of the highest quota and not a quota in each region? Simply because they are contesting for a seat in the National Assembly. And for contesting in the National Assembly, everyone who is entitled to vote for a National Assembly is entitled to stand for that election. That's why we are not locking the demonstration of support into a specific quota. But this is only true as it relates for the National Assembly elections. Sub 2 deals with an instance where an independent contests a seat in the provincial legislature. In that instance, we require the candidate to meet a quota of 20% of a previous election in that region. So they can't use a regional support from another province to demonstrate support. What do we mean? If a candidate is contesting a provincial legislature seat in the legislature of Gauteng, that candidate must meet the quota of a seat at the legislature in the previous election for the province of Gauteng. They can't use or demonstrate support by voters from outside of that province, because these are unique 9 elections, multi-member constituencies, which are the 9 provinces. So to read it into the record, in the case of an election for a provincial legislature, on the segment of the voters' roll for the province, and who support his or her candidature totaling at least 20% of the provincial quota in the preceding provincial legislature election, which the independent candidate intends to contest. So we think that this phrasing in clause 6 and the phrasing in clause 3 bring parity in how the bill impacts on independence. The biggest change is that for re-election in the National Assembly, a candidate will only demonstrate support by submitting signatures in respect of the highest quota for the regions that he wishes to contest. However, for a election of a provincial legislature, they can only contest in a legislature in a province in which they are registered, and to demonstrate support, the 20% of voters must be in respect of the voters' roll for that specific province. So the clause apply both for independents as well as for candidates who are on party list. This is the extent of our submission, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Ms. Govender.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will be taking the committee through the rest of the proposed amendments. On page 4, in respect of clause 21.1, on page 11 of the bill, in line 43, to omit most and substitute with highest proportion of. Point 2, on page 12, from line 68, to omit most number and substitute with highest proportion.
Line
Point
48.
3, on page 12, to omit the sentence in lines 59 and 60. On page 13, from line 5, to omit minus the votes cast in such region in favor of independent candidates already allocated 1 seat. On page 13, from line 9, to omit minus the seats held by independent candidates in terms of item 5E. On page 15, from line 16, to omit independent candidates already allocated a seat must further be disregarded in such recalculation. On page 15 of the bill, from line 22, to omit minus the votes cast in such province in favor of independent candidates already allocated 1 seat. On page 15 of the bill, from line 26, to omit minus the seats held by independent candidates in terms of item 11D. On page 17 of the bill, from line 23, to omit the forfeiture provisions in item 7 or item 12 as indicated by the context and substitute with item 23. On page 17, from line 29, to omit calculations performed in terms of the forfeiture provisions in item 7 or item 12 as indicated by the context and substitute with recalculations performed in terms of item 23. On page 18 of the bill, in line 4, to omit party or. On page 18, in line 9, to omit in terms of item 5I or item 11F. On page 18, in line 34, to omit item 7 or item 12 and to substitute with item 24. On page 18, from line 36 to line 39, to omit paragraph G. On page 18, in line 49, to omit item 7 or item 12 and to substitute with sub-item 3. On page 18, after line 49, to insert the following sub-item, 3A, an amended quota of votes per seat must be determined in respect of such region or province by dividing the total number of votes cast in the region or province minus the number of votes cast in the region or province in favor of the party or independent candidate standing to lose a seat, minus the votes cast in such region or province in favor of independent candidates already allocated 1 seat, by the number of seats plus 1 determined in terms of item 4 or item 8 in respect of the region or province concerned, minus the seats or seats retained by the party or independent candidate, minus the seats held by the independent candidate. B, the result plus 1, disregarding fractions, is the amended quota of votes per seat in respect of such region or province for purposes of the said recalculation. C, the number of seats to be awarded for the purposes of paragraph F in respect of such region or province to a party or independent candidate participating in the recalculation must, subject to paragraph D, be determined by dividing the total number of votes cast in favor of such party or independent candidate in such region or province by the amended quota of votes per seat indicated by paragraph B for such region or province. D, where the result of the calculation referred yields seats not absorbed by the number awarded to parties or independent candidates, the surplus of votes accruing to any party, parties, or independent candidates participating in the recalculation competes for the remaining seats in sequence of the highest surplus of votes. E, the aggregate of such a party's awards in terms of paragraphs C and D in respect of such region or province, subject to paragraph F, indicates that parties or independent candidates' final allocation of the seats determined under item 4 or item 8 in respect of that region or province. F, in the event of a party being allocated an additional number of seats in terms of this item, and if its list in question then does not contain the names of a sufficient number of candidates as set out in item 7.1 or item 12.1, the process provided for in this sub-item must be repeated with the changes required by the context until all seats have been allocated. Chairperson, the new clause is in respect of the Electoral Reform Advisory Committee, which has already been presented by Senior Counsel. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much, Ms. Govender and Ms. Williams, the state law advisors, for that presentation. I'm going to request Parliamentary Legal Services if you have any comment to make on the presentation.
Good morning, Chairperson again.
Mr. Njikelo, I think we can hear you, or I could hear you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Chair. Chair, we have taken note of what has been just read out for us. And I think for now, we're quite happy with that. And of course, Chair, we must note that we got the document and we will take the opportunity to consider if there is any further issue that we need to bring to our attention in the context of deliberation. Thank you very much, Chair. I don't know if my colleagues want to speak to any specific on the proposal.
Mr. Njikelo, I think that you were not very clear on the latter part of what you were saying. But perhaps let me allow, I know you're having problems with your gadgets. Your colleagues, Diksha or Talana?
Chairperson, at this point, I think what Mr. Njikelo was saying is that we've only looked at the department's proposals this morning. If there's anything that we wish to add, we will do so after this meeting in consultation with the state law advisors and IEC as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that then covers the comments from Parliament Legal Services. Let me then open it up to yourselves, honourable members, if you have any comments and or clarity seeking questions, you may do so. Okay, I see there's Honourable Maleka, Honourable Mikulakis, Honourable Ndangeni in that order. Honourable Maleka.
Thank you, Chairperson. If you can allow me to switch off my video. Good morning, honorable members, the Minister, IEC and the department. Chairperson, I want to, it's not a question anyway, it's a comment on clause 21. As clause 21 make provision for the technical insertion relating to the calculation for a seat. This is in line with the drop method that will be used to calculate a seat and the subsequent calculation for further seat allocation, excluding the vote and seats already calculated. Chairperson, the determination of the cutout through the calculation is very important in the allocation of seats, and this is consistent with the proportional representation approach of our electoral system. That's my comment, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maleka. Honorable Mikalakis.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just have a question on the wording, and I tried to note it down as best I could, but the wording seems to be 20% of the highest of the regional quotas. Although I understood the intention to be, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that it is 20% of the highest of the regional quotas of those regions where that independent is standing. As it currently reads, I think it is open to a bit of confusion or even the interpretation that it means the highest of all the regions in the country. And I think that if the intention is to make it 20% of the highest of the regional quotas where that independent is standing specifically, that it should be made a bit more explicit, just to provide clarity with regards to what the intention is. Again, I say I might have misunderstood the intention, but I do think that if the intention is only the regions where the independent is standing, that it would perhaps be better if we make it more explicit in the wording there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mikalakis. Honorable Dongeni.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Chair, morning, members, morning, members of IEC, commissioners, ministers. Thank you very much, Chair. The proposed insertion in the clause 6 is intended to give effect to the need for the equalization of the requirements for signature for the purpose of registering a new political party and the registration of the independent candidate. We believe that the equalization of the required signatures of 20% of the threshold requires for a seat is fair, as both the independent candidate and the political party are required for the signatures. This matter has been raised in the written submission, and we also support the view that independent candidates who secured a seat in the election should be exempted from these requirements in the coming election, given that the candidate has already shown that he or she has the support of the electorate. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ndongeni. Honorable Bartlett.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Chair, maybe I should have asked this question or raised this point earlier, but I just anyway want to raise it, Chair. It's on point 3, a clause introducing a panel, as we correctly maintain, Chair, the amendment of the Electoral Act as a result of the Constitutional Court judgment that directed that we should introduce provisions in the Act to allow the participation of independent candidates in elections, and that there's a view in society on the need to engage on the reform of our electoral system, Chair. And then secondly, it will be important that we create a panel that will give the society the opportunity to further engage on the kind of electoral system suitable for South Africa, and that we will be informed by the Constitutional Court judgment. And then, Chair, the reality is that given the time period to affect the court judgment, we may not be in a position to deal with the reform of our electoral system as expressed by society. And lastly, Chair, this panel will have enough time to assess electoral reform beyond the 2024 election, and it will also be provided an opportunity for the independent candidates that will be elected in the 2024 election to also participate in the electoral reform of our country. And then lastly, Chair, we believe it is reasonable. We believe it is reasonable and necessary to create provision for the establishment of such a panel in the bill. I thank you, Honorable Chair, and sorry if I was a bit late. Thanks, bye.
No, fine. Thank you, Honorable Bartlett. I don't see any other honorable member raising a hand. Thank you very much, honorable members, for those. I think some were largely comments. Mikalakis raised a question around the 20% of the highest of regional quota. I think in responding to this, I would propose that we get comments in the following order. We'll start with the IEC, or responses, sorry, in the following order. We'll go with the IEC, the department to follow, the state law advisors, and finally Parliament Legal Services, if they have anything to say. If I can start with the IEC, and you can respond to the question that was also raised by Honorable Mikalakis, and any comment if you wish to respond to that as well. IEC?
Chairperson, I'm going to ask Mr. Shiburi to deal with the matter and or the CEO. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shiburi. I would propose that you also take us through slowly on this one as well. I also had an issue with it when it was presented, and I think Honorable Mikalakis raised the issue appropriately.
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask that the Secretariat screens it again so that we can illustrate that while it's on the screen? As I understand, most members were making comments and statements. The only question that remains to be responded to is that which is raised by Honorable Mikalakis. Honorable Member, you are spot on. The clause is intended to do.
But hold on a minute. I just wanted the support our. No, it's not this document. It's the other one. Okay, and it's under clause 6.
It's under clause 6. Yes, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Gershwin.
Okay, thank you. Let's go up to deal with the independent first. Under clause 3. That's where, yes, please stop there, scroll down a bit, again, down a bit. Sub item 1, scroll down a bit. Thank you. Oh no, this one deals with parties. My apologies. Let's scroll to clause 6. You are correct. Clause 6. Scroll down a bit. Thank you. The question asked by Honorable Mikalakis, this provision is qualified on its last sentence of sub item 1 by the statement that indicates that this is linked to a region in which an independent intends to contest. The last sentence just before the Roman numeral 2 says which the independent candidate intends to contest. So the 20% relates to the highest of the regional quota in a region in which the independent intends to contest. For example, if the independent wishes to contest all 9 regions, currently the highest quota is the quota in Gauteng. They'll have to meet a quota in Gauteng. However, if an independent wishes to contest the Northern Cape, the Eastern Cape, and the Western Cape, in that scenario, they will have to meet and demonstrate support equivalent to the quota in the Western Cape, because the Western Cape in that scenario is the highest quota. So in short, the requirement is not for the whole 9 regions, but it's only, and it must be linked to the region that the independent intends to contest. That is the response to Honorable Mikalakis, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shiburi. Just clarity. If we're saying that it relates to the highest of the regional quota where they intend to contest, and you use the example of all 9 regions, by implication, Gauteng being the highest, they must reach that quota in Gauteng, 20% of that quota. And maybe just clarify that, and then if they do reach that quota, they would then contest in all 9 regions. Perhaps clarify that matter. Thanks.
That is correct, Honorable Chair. If an independent wishes to contest more than a single region, a seat in the National Assembly by standing in more than one region, instead of meeting a region, the quota in each of those regions, we are proposing that they meet a quota, they demonstrate support as it relates to the highest quota of the combination of regions they wish to contest. But if they stand in only one region, they must meet a quota for that region. So for example, if they stand in Gauteng, only in Gauteng, they must submit 18,000 signatures to demonstrate support. If they stand only in Northern Cape, they must submit, I'm not sure, I think it's about 8,000 signatures only to demonstrate that they wish to stand in that region. However, if they choose a combination of regions, instead of requiring that they meet a quota in each region, we're asking that they meet only the highest quota within the combination of the regions they wish to contest. And the reasoning for that is because they are contesting for a seat in the National Assembly and not specifically in the region. So they just need to demonstrate that they have enough capacity or support to be able to garner a seat in a National Assembly. Juxtapose that with the requirements for a provincial legislature. In a provincial legislature, they need to meet the quota in that specific province. There is no similar provision of the highest quota in the regions that they are contesting. I'm not sure if it clarifies it, Chair. Thanks.
No, I think it does. It does. Thank you very much.
Chair.
Let me then move to the department.
Chair.
Dr. Motsoaledi.
Yes, before we pass this issue, my apologies. Yes, I think the matter is clarified, Chair. But Honorable Michalakis was saying it must be explicit. And I really do understand where he comes from. It took Mr. Shiburi to explain exactly what is written here. And my understanding is that Mr. Michalakis said, put it in such a way that when anybody reads it, he doesn't need Mr. Shiburi to explain what it means, but understand exactly from the beginning what that means. I thought that's what he was asking for. And I tend to agree with him in that regard.
No, thank you very much, Minister, for also highlighting that one. I'd actually forgotten it. Okay, but I think this is a matter that the legal teams can actually go back and relook at this so that it becomes a lot more clearer, and no need for Mr. Shiburi there to give an explanation. I would propose on this one that we deal with it in that manner. Okay, I want to then just go on to the department if they have any comment from the legal teams to make.
Honourable Chair, thank you. I think the Minister has given an appropriate comment already, and we have no further comments at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's then go to the state law advisors.
Thank you, Chairperson. We have noted the proposed amendment to item 3 in respect of clause 3. We will draft that accordingly, redraft that accordingly. And then with regard to the proposal by the department on the electoral reform consultation panel, Chairperson, just one thing I'd like to point out is that when we draft an amendment to the Act, this proposal is an insertion of section 114A. What happens in respect of this is that when this would be an amendment to the Principal Act. So once this electoral reform consultation panel has completed its work, it will still be part of the Principal Act. So it creates a place of permanency within the Principal Act itself. Another option that the committee would want to consider would be what we usually draft. For example, when we do an amendment bill, we provide for transitional provisions. So what that would be is it wouldn't be an amendment to a clause in the Principal Act. So similarly, for example, this could be drafted as a clause in the bill. So it won't be an amendment to the Principal Act, but merely a clause before you get the short title and commencement, which would provide for electoral reform. What this means would be that once this committee has completed its work and everything, we wouldn't need to amend the Principal Act to omit this provision, because it would no longer be relevant, because after the committee has completed its work, it would have the same effect of law if it is in the bill itself, in the amendment bill. So when it's passed, it will be part of the Amendment Act itself, but not part of the Principal Act. So it wouldn't create a place of permanency in the Act, and it would fall away once the committee has completed its work. So that's just the drafting proposal. The contents thereof, we haven't fully considered the contents thereof. And there's slight drafting proposals which we will effect after this meeting, when we meet with the parliamentary law advisors and the department. Thanks, Chair. So that's maybe something that the committee would also like to consider. Thanks.
No, thank you for that. I think that was an important input, especially with regard to whether we need this clause to be permanent in a piece of legislation, and whether it should rather be as a transitional provision within the amended bill. I think, our members, just with regard to that, can I also propose that the legal teams deal with that matter, and in our next meeting also give us a report on that, unless there's any other comment that we don't support such a suggestion. Okay, I take it that we okay with that. All right, and then I think finally, if I can get a comment from Parliament Legal Services.
Good morning again, Chairperson.
Good morning.
Chair, actually, we're quite happy with your last comments, that the legal teams need to just have an opportunity before Wednesday to go through the proposed changes that were tabled now here, so that we can be able to clean up the document and make your life easy on Wednesday. We have taken note of what have been proposed now, and we think they contribute to the improvement of the bill. So we will arrange a meeting with the rest of the legal teams to just touch on issues that have been raised and make sure that we are all on the same page. But we're quite happy with what has happened in the course of this meeting.
Okay, no, thank you very much. I think all stakeholders have made their necessary inputs, and I think members have raised all the necessary comments and our questions. Let me take this opportunity also to thank the minister, the independent electoral commissioners and commission, the legal teams from the state law advisors, parliamentary legal services, the department's legal team, as well as the IEC's legal teams for their participation and input into this entire process. I know that time is of essence in terms of most of what we do. And I think we should thank you very much as well with trying to keep up with some of these processes. Let me also thank honorable members for the relevant inputs into this. I think it was pretty helpful as well. And it does clarify some aspects of the proposals. With that said, on members, we'll then meet again on Wednesday to look at the amendments, especially with the view of adopting these in the next meeting. With that said, let me also then declare this meeting closed. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.